Committee meeting for September 21st, 2016. And as is our custom, we are going to begin with a stand-up. And first will be Anna.
Yeah, so this week I was mostly at Node Interactive in Amsterdam, like many of us here, I guess. And in particular, I did the Code and Learn workshop on Saturday, where a lot of people did their first contributions to Node Core. Next up is Nikita, I guess.
I filed some documentation related pull requests that are mostly linked in the documentation related, and some other comments and pull reviews and pull request reviews like usual. Nothing else. And I don't have the document before me now. Probably next is Ivan, I think.
Yeah, I've been working on an EP for exposing the is methods from core. That's about it. Next is Jeremiah.
I've mostly been helping to review Async Hooks, and I also did the 6.6.0 release. Just like minor miscellaneous stuff. Other than that, doesn't look like Tracy's here, so Fedora.
Yeah, hey, so I think I was mostly reviewing some pull requests, regular and security issues, and yeah, I have been to Node.js Interactive as well, as many of us are present here. So that's pretty much it for me. Next is James.
Yeah, primarily Node Interactive, the Code and Learn, reviewing all the pull requests from the Code and Learn, trying to get those landed. Getting V7 beta, the first beta build ready, which it just finished building just a short while ago. That's basically it. I'm not in front of the list right this second, so I don't know who's next.
Josh would be next if he's here. Otherwise, I think it's me. So, okay, I was at Node Interactive as well. Also trying to complete the move of the new PPC machines into the CI, adding Linux 1 and AX to the nightly build, build and benchmarking workgroup meetings, investigating some AX specific issues, a little bit of work on maybe our stable port, and then just trying to catch up on issues while I was away, that were raised while I was away. Next is Brian.
Okay, so I basically was doing a lot of performance testing this past week, including submitting some PRs for improving timers performance, an alternative PR to fix the malloc 0 issue that occurred in the 6.6, and also started working on some other various potential optimizations in core, and in the usual reviewing PRs and commenting on issues. Next is Ali, if he's here. No, doesn't look like he's here.
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, so yeah, I was busy with mostly internal stuff, but I was working with some inspector PRs and also trying to finish up a V8 guide for how to maintain V8 within Node. And that's basically it. Next would be Jen, or Seth, or Shigeki, or Steven.
Here's Steven. Sorry, just trying to find the document here. But anyway, so yeah, just issues. I also started on as ICU 58 is nearing release mid next month. I updated some issues around the ICU 58 bump and put out a branch with the almost but not quite final ICU 58 merged in. The bottom line is there's basically no delta in terms of binary size. I'm trying to find the document, so I don't know who's next yet.
I think that's going to be me. So I was also at Node. This is Miles, for the record. I was also at Node Interactive EU in the Collaboration Summit, starting work on a new TAP reporter for the project. I was reviewing some work that Ali was doing on a V8 guide and just general LTS backporting work. Next up would be Rich.
Hi. So before I get to my stuff, I keep seeing the fourth eye trying to join, it looks like. So, hey, Saclopion, if you're listening on the stream or something, if you have any questions or have any issues, get in touch with... Oh, still no audio. Okay. All right, I'm not gonna be able to address that right now, but maybe if someone else knows anything.
So there's like, I don't know if there's a little gear on the bottom right. You might be able to set where your audio comes out from and where the microphone goes in. Just as a note, you won't be able to join the call if you don't have a microphone hooked up. For some reason, the software that we're using doesn't like that.
Okay, my stand-up while we're going here. Pardon me. I onboarded 2 new collaborators, both of whom are Google employees working on V8, I believe, or V8 Inspector, or both. Anyway, Alexei and Eugene. Sorted test tools and doc PRs. I have a fix-in for, I put the link in the doc, but there's just, there was a bug that came up. I did a fix, and then we thought we'd do the fix differently, and then we came back to the fix that, anyway, you get the idea. Please take a look. And I'm looking at the recent uptick in test failures on CI and trying to figure out ways to sort of fix it from a systematic point of view to avoid it from recurring, because this seems to happen from time to time. And so yeah, looking into that, and also working on the CTC meeting time proposal, although it looks like Chalker may be working harder than me on that. So that's exciting, and it's more work than you think, trust me. Did we miss anybody? Okay. Right, Josh is not here to take minutes. Anna's volunteering. I proposed the, well, okay. I was going to propose that we all take minutes, but that might be really horrible. Let's all just, let's just make sure some minutes get taken. Okay, so the first item is the, I guess I took off the Async Hooks thing because we talked about it last week at the meeting, and it was on the agenda for a couple weeks. It was like, it'll be the first thing next week, and it'll be the first thing the week after that, and then it was finally done. But I guess, Jeremiah raised the point that we should be making sure that nobody has any concerns that need to be talked about. And so I want to just take a moment now to see if there's anybody who wants to express concerns or have any questions, although I guess if Trevor's not here, we might not get very far. But let's try. Okay, cool. If I think if anybody has concerns, I think the place to express it at this point is in the GitHub repo. And if it's something that the CTC needs to discuss, you can re-add the CTC agenda label. Does anybody object to that approach? Nope. Cool. Anna, Josh has arrived. I don't know if you want to turn over the note taking or not. But the next item is the updating V8 to 5.4. The question before the CTC is whether we think it's okay to go ahead and land the beta in master. And I know that Jeremiah has some concerns, and I don't know if anybody else does. So perhaps Ali can take 2 or 3 sentences to frame the issue, and Jeremiah can express his concerns, and other people can discuss from there.
Sounds good. So V8 5.4 is currently in beta. It's shipping as part of Chrome beta. And given that we are trying to release 7.0 with V8 5.4, I think it would benefit us to land this in master now, as opposed to around October 18th, which is going to be very close to when we are going to be releasing 7.0 testing now on master. So traditionally, we've only landed V8 once it goes stable. And independently, I've wanted to bring up a proposal to switch it to beta. But in this particular instance, I think it's important because 7.0 and 5. And this beta are lining up so closely.
So
that's
the
the premise.
original reason for why we only landed stable is because during IOJS, we were on beta streams, and then we were told by V8 and or whoever was on the Google team that we shouldn't be doing that because stuff can change by the end. And stuff has and did change before they became stable. Like removing array.includes. I mean, that's what most easily comes to mind, but I'm sure there were other instances of similar things. I mean, did these sort of things like change on the V8 end, or like how is this a better idea now that it was yesterday?
So actually, I think the rule of thumb should be that we should not be shipping a V8 beta, right? So even if you look at our own master, the master branch may have behavior changes from today to tomorrow, and that's okay because we're not shipping it. And the idea is master gets testing. So as long as we do not ship the V8 beta, I think things are fine. So bugs may show up that may get fixed, and that may be a behavioral change, but that doesn't matter because it's the master branch, not a shipping branch.
Did you like? Why is my live stream unmuted? I mean, we're gonna have like RCs of this, right? Is that like considered shipping this? I expect like there'll be some people that like use these RCs and expect what they're getting to have like not much breakage between, you know, RC to release.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, maybe that's not much breakage.
And we've had issues just recently where things are broken in master, and people go out to Twitter and complain about how Node is broken because we broke their stuff just because it's broken in master, even if it doesn't actually go to one of the releases. We need to try to avoid those kinds of things as much as possible. Right?
So the purpose of an RC is that, I mean, this is what we think we're going to ship. So please try it out.
Right.
And it's an RC, so things might change, but we're trying our best not to change. And the intention with the V8 beta is that it is not intended that a breaking change would happen. So as far as the intent is concerned, there's no API changes that are intended in V8 betas. Whether or not if there's a bug that is found that is actually found to be breaking the web and a behavior change needs to happen, I mean, it's a beta at the end of the day, so those can happen, but that's not intentional. I think that lines up with what an RC is supposed to be as well.
Yeah, I would just, I was going to second that and say that I think internally we definitely treat the beta releases as sort of RCs of a type ourselves. I think the question is just whether the friction of pulling it in early and making sure as it gets updated the bugs aren't introduced. It's just a kind of a cost trade-off of whether it's worth it. But I think that certainly in terms of on our end, as long as it's the expectations match that it's what we expect to ship but hasn't been blessed yet, I don't see any huge concerns from sort of whether it's being used correctly from the V8 side.
I think to speak to James's comment, about people being upset with master being broken. A lot of the instances that we're talking about too have to do with like things landing on master that are like experience breaking, like things just are not working. And then we take quite a bit of time to fix that. We've done quite a bit of testing right now with 5.4. I think that like having the beta stream on there is reasonable as long as we're willing to revert quickly if there's an experiencing breaking problem. Otherwise, it's kind of serving its purpose if it's finding bugs and we're able to patch them and fix them.
I mean, I think like a good number of people have made good arguments for like doing this. I just find it so strange that like we're changing what we're doing about something that we previously took a pretty strong stance on because we experienced issues with it. I don't know if that makes sense, but
the reason we had that stance before, or that's when we had that stance before, was really before we had the improved release model, the LTS, right? So, the risk of introducing those breaks in those earlier versions was much greater than it is now. So I think, Jeremiah, I 100% get where you're coming from. I just think that the risk is lower now.
I mean, okay, as long as I'm not responsible for it.
I want to find out if is there anybody else who wants to talk about any concerns, because if this, I mean, if there are there any other voices for that other than Jeremiah? Because I want to hear from them if there are. Okay, Jeremiah, did you want to say more? Does anybody else think there's more to discuss about this at this point?
I would just ask Jeremiah, is this something that you absolutely don't want to see, or you want to live with it as long as, like you just said, someone else is fixing the breaks and it's not something you have to put a lot of time into, or what?
Like, I don't know. Again, like everyone seems to think it's a pretty good idea, and people have made pretty good arguments for it. So, I mean, okay, I guess I'll just like, if there needs to be a vote on it, I'll just abstain from it, I think.
Unless somebody else is going to raise their voice on this, I think it's fair to say we have consensus and don't need to vote.
Like, I guess we may as well try it again and see how it pans out if we really think it's, good enough idea to do that. I mean, that's the only way we're really going to find out, so.
Okay, unless there's objections, I think I'd like to move on to the next item. It sounds like we have a resolution here that we're going to do it. We're going to keep a careful eye on it. We're going to, be prepared to revert quickly if we have to, and we'll evaluate once we've done this for one release cycle and figure out if we want to do it again or if we want to avoid this in the future.
What I would ask for the V8 folks, that if anything significant comes up that's being worked on or being looked at, or there are changes that are being considered, please give us a heads up as early as possible.
So actually, one heads up I can give right now. So one change that I do expect that might happen is that given that Node is going to pick up 5.4, and given that V8 Inspector has landed upstream in V8, it might get backported to 5.4 so that Node no longer has to maintain. So we can directly use the copy in V8. So in summary, this should be a simplification of our build process and the code we're maintaining. But that's a change I do expect in 5.4.
Okay, anything else on this topic before we move on? Okay, the next item is one that I put on the agenda. It's about scheduling meeting times. If it's okay with everybody else, I think I don't really want to have a conversation about this necessarily today. I think we're in good shape right now, having the back and forth and a little bit in email and a lot in the GitHub repo. The two things I wanted to do though is I wanted to put I wanted to have it on the agenda so the link was there so people who haven't seen it yet can click on it, go to it and comment. And the other thing is Anna suggested earlier that we make sure that the link that the Google Doc form thing that Chalker put together, that Nikita put together and sent to all of us, to the CTC members privately, that we share it with the observers and others. So Anna posted it in the chat earlier. I'm posting it again. Please don't put it in a public place because we don't want randos coming in and entering data. With that, is there anything anybody wants to say about this at this time, or can we move on to Jeremiah's issue about modules? All right, let's talk about modules. Jeremiah, you want to set the context for this for people and for listeners?
Right.
Who are also people.
So I think I have it relatively well documented now, like the majority of the problems we're looking at that we can see so far about interoperability or implementation, whatnot. Some of those are in my pull request to amend EP002, but they are more or less also listed on the CTC issue tracker, Node.js/CTC/issues 15. And there's a bunch of things on there. And so far, I mean, Bradley's been at this for like almost a year now, trying to get better support for us, and nothing's really moved from the spec end. So, I mean, I kind of doubt it will, although I would like to still like push in that direction if that will help us. But I think generally it would be good if we could, like, if I could at least get a better understanding of like what the CTC and also like the collaborators sort of care about. I'm sort of focusing on the CTC because it's just easier to get like some amount of like decision from the overall group from the CTC, because it's a smaller group of people, because there's a lot to talk about here.
So
because like I'm at the point where, I mean, it's hard to know like what opinion I should have about all this stuff.
So if I were to summarize the question you're asking, more or less, it's if, assuming there are no spec changes that are coming, and we hope that there are, but assuming that the spec does not change, what should we do? Is that a summation of the question?
Like what do we want to push on for, like, if we want to push the spec to changing to get better compatibility, like what points do we want to push? Because there's a lot to push it all. Pushing it all pretty much means like rewrite the entire spec, and I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Right. Okay, I got it.
Some of these points touch on, well, like if you want wrapping the way we do it, then you can't have parse time linking, and that gets really deep. Same with async loading. Yeah.
And there's another aspect of this too, is having conversations at TC39 on multiple levels, not just the technical side, but process side, to try to get the committee to care more about the issues that we're having with Node, with implementing this, and to try to convince them that if there are changes that need to be made, that's something that we need to discuss, and it's something that they should care about also. So
Okay, so on that note, like even if there's things that could change, you still come back to roughly this list of issues,
right.
which comes down to what do we care about the most? Like what do we want to tackle the most? Because some of the things get into rewrite like a huge amount of how, at least how things can work, if not the way they work. I mean, it would probably be, I don't know, I think it might be better to have like more discussion like on call about this, but if people aren't like up to speed enough, like at least getting people to chime in on this would be like really important. There is, as I stated here, in a TC39 meeting next week, and we have a couple people going to that. So, I mean, having some context around what the CTC cares about would be very useful for that.
Right. For that, Jeremiah, I was going to propose that we set another special call next week. The TC39 meeting is the 27th through the 29th. We can have a call before then with the folks at the CTC dedicated specifically to your list of issues and discussing those. So make sure that we're all on the same page before we go. That would be very helpful.
Well, I agree about that. We also need, I think, a general consensus from the CTC on, okay, even if like you don't care about like modules very much in specific, like if you care about things like how modules are generally loaded, if you can have test tooling that like wraps things, or if you have other things that inspect modules directly by wrapping anything, or overload modules, or care about REPLs, then like these are still points we need to decide if we care about or not.
Right.
At the risk of tainting the well, do you have strong opinions, Jeremiah, or is it all just a big blob of high priority stuff that's hard to differentiate what's the highest?
Yeah, like I'm having a lot of trouble differentiating like what I should care about here from like our end on node implementers, because there's just so much stuff.
So I think I'd like to
pretty much all of it is breaking stuff. I mean, it's not that there's any one issue that's more breaking than the other. It's like they're all breaking issues.
So I've had discussions with people that, and it's not, most of it's not directly breaking, like, so we don't break modules, but if people decide, like if modules themselves decide, let's use ES modules, they could be breaking downstream modules, is pretty much what it comes down to, except for the fact that core can't really move to ES modules for like core files. So named imports might not work from core. That is, and the same thing goes for like like inspection or mocking. Is it like, are we really breaking them then, or are modules that use them breaking these use cases? I don't know anymore.
Yeah, that stands out to me actually. The stuff that some modules do to overwrite what would have been the default behavior, like for mocking or for the APMs. That seems like a concern. I mean, there's certainly a lot of things that rely on that.
Right.
That
Speaking of which,
late ability to change.
Like, I don't know if Graceful FS like will work at all if we move the core FS module in some future to use ES modules. And that's like not even like a thing we might be able to do in the first place, but like as an example, I'm not sure that any approach would work.
So Jeremiah, can I ask you, in terms of the meeting next week, what are you hoping to get accomplished by the end of the meeting?
Which meeting?
The TC39 meeting next week.
I mean, it's looking like I might not be there unless the TSC decides to send me on foundation funds. So,
Okay. Well, assuming you're able to get there, or if some set of us go, Brad, myself, whoever else, what do you want to see come out of that meeting by the time we're done?
probably like, I think three things. A, like TC39 showing some amount of care for our problems. Two, like communication like of those and like some amount of cooperation. And three, probably some amount of at least looking at delaying shipping dates so that we don't have a browser vendor war that outs our problems. Like a performance race, pretty much, that leaves us behind.
So I strongly suspect that most people currently on this call do not feel sufficiently informed to express strong opinions about this stuff. And I wonder if the thing to do is to just encourage everybody to read the issue carefully, ask a bunch of questions in the issue tracker, and know that the drop dead date of the TC39 meeting next week is coming, and we need to have one clear set of priorities. And it's kind of important that everybody who can have an informed opinion on this actually educate themselves and participate.
Yeah, for the TC39 meeting, I've had a number of conversations with some of the members there, and what they have articulated, in terms of the meeting next week, is one, not to expect sweeping changes to be made just because we show up and ask for them. The main thing is we need to be able to articulate why the current spec is a problem. And if there are aspects of that current spec that are either incorrect or can be improved, and it's on us to make the case for those things. We cannot go there expecting them automatically to care about those changes. Now, ideally, they would care already, right? Most of these people are Node users. But we have to be prepared with a solid argument for this is why the module spec is currently broken.
I mean, it's not really broken, but it doesn't really have any interoperability with what we have.
Well, right. Broken in terms of we can't implement it, and this is why. In order to do that, we do need to make sure that we are all on the same page. So just like Trot was saying, just like Jeremiah's been saying, we really do need everyone to go through these issues and spend some time. And if there's things that just don't make sense there, we need to pull those out and focus just on the things that have the most impact.
Okay, is there anything else someone wants to say on this topic?
I'd like to add one quick thing. While we were, there was a whole bunch of conversations on Twitter lately, and one of the biggest sentiments that I saw coming from a number of people from the TC39 was that there are individuals who do care and want to work with us on it. And so I think one thing that we could work towards and would be really good is just like if we approach it with that narrative and make it clear. I just kind of feel like if we approach it with the ideology that the TC39 won't budge and doesn't care, that we're gonna not really have a lot of progress. But individuals like Yehuda and Brendan Ike, I think Rick Waldron, there's a number of people who want to work with us and see this and see this through. So I think approaching it in a positive light may have more of an impact. And I know that it's not really saying a whole lot. We're coming up against a lot of problems, and it's going to be a long road to get somewhere that we can work with. But I do think that positive approach will make a big difference.
Yeah, I know Brian, we met Jeremiah and Brian Charlson and a couple other people last week, and he was actually really happy with Bradley's slide deck, and I know he wants to figure out how we can make this work. So
I mean,
yeah.
I didn't really feel that positive about that meeting, but I don't think I really agree with what Bradley is up to anyways. I mean, that's mostly because I think Bradley's a little bit burnt out from dealing with this for so long, so he probably doesn't hold as strong of opinions as we do.
Yeah, and I will say that Brendan and I actually reached out I think 2 weeks ago and did express that he and a number of others on the committee really do want this to work. I think that there is much more positive relationship that we can build. We just got to make sure that we're approaching it in the right way. There definitely seems to be just an overall positive sentiment that we should be able to make this work. It's just a matter of coming in and making the right case. So.
Anybody else? Okay. With that, I think we come to the Q&A on public channels.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, please put them in the YouTube chat or IRC, and we'll stay open for a couple minutes to wait for those and answer them if there are any.
In the meantime, I'll take a moment to read off a few of the upcoming meeting dates. The next CTC meeting will be in 1 week. The TSC meets tomorrow. I guess I wonder if we should start putting UTC time. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the diagnostics team meets on September 28th, and the benchmarking team met already. So that date is, or meets today rather, or met today. I have no idea. Okay, have we received any questions? All right, well, if there haven't been any questions, perhaps we should sign off and go to the private portion of the meeting. Does anybody object to that? Is there more public business? All right, thank you, world, for listening, and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.